Hi, this is Kristen. Welcome back to my series on alcohol and alcohol problems. And today I wanted to make a video briefly about a comment or in response to a comment that caught my interest. It was from someone who said that he'd been sober for more than 10 years and yet there was still a feeling of missing the numbing effect of alcohol when, as the person put it, things feel bleak. And I think that it is revealing of some important things. And I think it's a very common experience that many times people solve the problem of their drinking in their life by stopping drinking, which of course has to happen. If you've watched any of my other videos, or even have the lived experience of having this problem, it becomes very clear that the only way to move forward in life is without alcohol being a part of life and without alcohol going into the body any further, because it only progresses the problem and there's no way to control it if that's the situation with you. However, if you only just stop drinking and you don't address the other factors, the reasons that caused you to be vulnerable to this alcohol problem in the first place, then there's going to be an ongoing feeling of deprivation of this very important tool for being able to self-regulate in a way, or to be able to quell stress or anxiety, to be able to change how you feel, basically. When we stop drinking, we are essentially removing a method that we have used successfully up until that point to change how we feel. And if we stop drinking, probably it was because there comes with the relief of unpleasant feelings or intolerable feelings. With the relief comes a whole slew of problems. And that's what we realize after a time. We can't only extract out of the use of alcohol the good it brings or the benefit that we initially started using it for. We can't just take a little pie piece out of that pie. Oh no, we're going to get the full pie. And over time, the pie is going to get more and more bitter. And yet we will be forced to eat it if we keep using alcohol in that way. But see, if we only do that part, the stopping of the drinking, it does set up this ongoing, never-ending missing of the drinking. And so one would have to start to ask themselves, what is it? What is it that they feel in life? How, we've got to get to know how we feel in our life. How do we feel? And how do we feel about ourselves in life? What is it we believe that we need? What is it that we believe about how we interact with life? Do we believe that, we could say there's a belief system about I can't be happy until certain things are the way I want them to be. And so when those things are in place in my life, then I will be happy. And perhaps something like, when this problem goes away, then I won't be so stressed. It's this problem that is causing me all this stress and anxiety. And when this gets resolved, then I will be able to relax. If that's your approach to life, and I feel like it's most people's approach, it was my approach for many years of my life, of course. I feel like most of us are raised this way. It's a problem because that means we are now at the mercy of our particular set of circumstances we're in, our environment. And so we're always vulnerable to whatever is taking place. And as you probably know, not everyone behaves well in life. So there's going to always be those people, who may be difficult. They may be bullies. They may be just making problems for us. Things like that, right? I mean, we can't control what people do. We can't control circumstances. And I'm sure you've heard it somewhere else. Certainly, I didn't originate it. The idea that, the only thing we can control is how we respond to things. And so, if we've gone through life, having a hard time in whatever way, and we discovered alcohol, it helped us feel better. It was a relief. It did provide relief for us, soothing, numbing, as this one commenter mentioned, a numbing effect. Perhaps it then, in its numbing effect, it caused a reduction of pain. There could be things that we have emotional pain about that we carry forward with us in life through time, through memories, not resolving it, feeling guilty, feeling victimized by things from the past, whatever it is. When we then have found this way, and then we came to even further believe that, here's the solution to these problems, and now it sets up this idea, I need alcohol to feel better. And of course, as I described in other videos, if we drink enough and long enough, and then have to increase our drinking over time, the physical body will also cooperate with that idea that you need it to self-regulate. And it will also come to believe it, and it will also operate like that, right? Well, now, so you've gotten to a point where there's a very deeply entrenched belief that somehow you're vulnerable and at the mercy of things in life, and you have a need for something out there to change this feeling. And that's what's got to change, that whole way of thinking and believing. If you looked at it like alcohol is a neutral thing out there like any other thing. It's a liquid. It does a certain thing to the human body. And I used it for a time because I was anxious, in emotional pain, whatever it is. But now I'm deciding that I want to have my life. And now I'm deciding that, I'm thinking about having a different way of feeling about life and thinking about myself and feeling about myself. What if I changed from feeling vulnerable to all the things that go on in my environment, the things that I don't like, the things that aren't fair to me? What if I said to myself, you know what? Nobody can stop me from being happy. Like, the things could be going on. Nothing may change tomorrow. Nothing's going to change tomorrow. I'm still going to have to go to the same job, or I'm still married to the same person, or my kids aren't doing what I want them to do, and I'm unhappy about it. But what if I decided that I had, many more years left of life, and now I'm going to enjoy them? I'm just going to not worry about what other people are doing. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on how I feel. I don't feel worried about being stressed anymore. I don't I don't feel concerned about how I'm going to make the problem go away. I'm going to let the problem be right where it is. I don't care anymore. I'm okay with it. These are just examples. I'm just saying what's coming to my mind as new ways of thinking about things. We certainly do not need an external thing to change how we feel if we realize that we can change how we feel ourselves, that we're not at the mercy of all these circumstances. And why would life feel bleak? This person had mentioned when things feel bleak. Does that mean they feel hopeless, helpless? The person might feel helpless. Perhaps, we could find things that are bleak in life. If we look at certain things, all we have to do is turn on the news, right? We're going to find something that upsets us, one way or the other. We could say, I'm looking at that thing, and it's causing me to feel that things are bleak. Now, what if we shut that off and we sit quietly wherever we are, and we literally, you've probably heard people talk about having an attitude of gratitude is like a really good idea, and write down all the things you're grateful for every morning, have a gratitude practice. And it may sound kind of cheesy, but actually it's quite helpful because it's important to start to reflect on what you do have in your life so that you don't forget that there are many things going quite well for you, even in dire circumstances. If you're breathing, if you're in some kind of physical health, some amount of physical health, maybe not 100%, but if there's some health, if you're breathing, if there was a meal you ate, if there was a beautiful sky you saw, if there is a relationship that's positive, if there is a pet that you love, any number of things, any little, even the smallest things are so appreciated by us when we pay attention to the fact that we do love that thing, or that we do appreciate that thing in our lives. And perhaps we've been taking it for granted while we're really focused on the problems of our life, or the things that cause us to feel bad, memories of the past and whatnot. And meanwhile, right in front of us in the now moment are all these things that we actually do appreciate, but we just haven't been giving our thought to them, our attention to them. And along these lines of, the difference between like one way of thinking and another way of thinking. If you had two people in dire straits, let's say you had two people who lost their job, lost everything, became homeless, they're really at the bottom of things. Obviously, that would be an extremely stressful situation to be in. Now, if you have someone on one hand who feels at the mercy of circumstances, right, which I think anyone would kind of feel that way, at least for a minute, okay. But if they're of that mindset all the time anyway, where they really feel like helpless, and they don't have a lot of belief in themselves, and they maybe even don't have a positive belief about themselves. It could be that they blame themselves for the situation they're in, and maybe there's a lot of negative self-talk about themselves all through this crisis, right? And then you compare it to someone who has a different kind of mindset, that they found themselves in this circumstance, and they, like anyone else, they're going to take the time for the pity party, because let's be real, we've got to do that. When things happen that are devastating, of course we have to take the time to honor that, cry, grieve, whatever, Okay. Yes. But then say this person is of a different kind of thought and feeling about themselves and about life. Let's say this person generally actually is quite happy with themselves, that perhaps the reason they're in this circumstance, maybe they were victimized by their spouse and everything was taken, and then maybe they got fired unfairly. These things happen. Unfair things happen. But say if the person didn't take it personally because they actually had some kind of like care for themselves and they knew they were, you could say, a quote unquote good person, but that they also had a sense of hope or faith in themselves where they did believe that they could get themselves out of this somehow, and that they weren't going to give up. So they've got this sort of positively minded person, and then you've got like the one who's negative about themselves. Now, which one do you think is more likely to successfully get out of the situation or to improve upon it in a faster way? I mean, I think it's obvious that if someone has a more positive, hopeful outlook, if they feel that they have some kind of ability to change things for themselves, if they have some amount of good feeling for themselves and they care about themselves and they want to better their situation, wouldn't they be more likely to come up with ideas, to take certain actions, whereas the other person might be wallowing in a lot of emotional pain and desperation? They might turn to drugs because they feel so bad. And there's no judgment in that. I mean, if the person isn't aware that they could feel like this person and they're in this situation, you could see why people do turn to drugs to just try to self-medicate through each day, because it's just too painful. And it's just a matter of not realizing that actually they could be more of the mind of this person who is going to likely get themselves out of that situation. And maybe you know people who have gotten themselves out of that situation. I do. People who've lost everything, and then bit by bit they rebuild their lives. And that kind of thinking, or that kind of thinking is going to protect you from ever feeling like you are deprived of something like alcohol to help numb feelings. Because a person in this kind of thinking can feel negative feelings and find a new way to story these. They can forgive the past. They can truly forgive themselves. They'll look back on things and they'll find times in their lives where they overcame things, and then that will give them hope for the next challenge that comes up. They will be able to have difficult things arise or unpleasant feelings arise and sit feeling the feelings and not feel desperate to run away from the feeling, but to just be with it, be curious about it, and then find some way to make themselves feel better about it because they have compassion for themselves. And a lot of times people's emotional pain continues in life because they haven't forgiven themselves for something, or many things maybe. And that would be something I would inquire within about. Are there things I have not forgiven myself for? And to know that you need to find a way to forgive yourself for everything. If you feel guilty about things you've done in the past, well, that tells me that you didn't want to have the outcome be as it was. So that tells me you wouldn't have had it turn out that way had you known better back then. So you see how you're innocent there, that you made a mistake, that you didn't have all the information or something like that. You made a mistake. We all make mistakes. And so it's forgivable. You have to let yourself be forgiven by yourself so that you can move forward and feel okay with yourself. And then, man, if you can forgive yourself, you're going to be separate from the past. And that's good because the past doesn't exist. It only exists in your mind now. And so that's where the suffering is, in your mind. So this was a little rambling, but just want to throw some ideas out there about the idea of missing alcohol after many years of sobriety, when really probably there's a better way to live with yourself, where you don't have to feel like things are bleak, and you don't have to feel like you need something to numb emotional pain. You can heal that emotional pain. It can be healed. It can be resolved. And even if it doesn't get fully resolved, you can learn that it softens and it can get better and better over time. But you're not missing out on anything. And I would also offer start a meditation practice for sure. All right. Okay, maybe I'll talk about that more in another video. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.